Hey, welcome to another episode of Into the 99 with Live Brewing. I've got Thunder here with me. We are coming to you live on this lovely, what is this, a Monday? Painkillers are crazy. Thunder, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. We're on the flip side of the coin, the weather coin here. So from hot and sweaty to cold and rainy. Lots of flooding in the eastern parts of Europe, which is very sad. People's homes are getting destroyed, which is never good to see. But I'm safe here in Frankfurt so far. So
That's good.
let's
That's so
hope.
dark.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a dark story. Jeez.
it's Germany.
It,
That's what we talk about, dark things.
it's very hot out here, so it's a little bit different. I've had my AC cranked, we got like a water break going on in Calgary, so it's been like no like outdoor watering and stuff like that. So everyone's like, it's just so warm that everyone's grass is going good. I'm gonna have a little stormy weather. It'll be all right.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe not house destroying. The other side of the city where I live, it's very weird. There's like between the north and the south side. The south side just gets like destroyed by hail frequently. Like
Wow.
it ruins like cars. Like every time there's like a crazy hailstorm, it'll cause millions and millions of dollars in damage of like blowing out like car windows, like ruining siding, ruining roofs. And then like my side is like a light sprinkle. I don't
Are
understand
we
it.
are we talking like fist size hail?
Oh yeah, like huge hail. Like it's
Mm.
the one of the hailstorms recently was like it was like I think the most expensive natural disaster in Alberta, I think on record or something like that. It was crazy.
Oh,
Like it ruined so many houses. It looks driving through it and stuff looked like a war zone and stuff. Like it looked like bullet holes through houses.
jeepers. Yeah, sounds like my hometown.
Yeah, that doesn't it
Back in
doesn't
South
sound too fun.
Africa.
In where?
Yeah. I grew up in a place called Pietermaritzburg in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't so much while I was growing up, although we had a couple serious hailstorms in the sort of north of the city. They started having very bad hailstorms, the kind where you get these like fist size hailstones and they will smash through your roof tiles, through your ceiling. If you're
Okay,
not careful,
so a
hit you in
similar
the
thing
head.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it it definitely seems like it's very, very rough. Like I know Brian and stuff had like I think his car fully written off by it. Like it totally like wrecked his car and
Yeah, that's bad.
yeah. It's not as wonderful as it can be. Let me I should probably have we'll figure that one out after. My live button, my recording button. Let me get it going anyways. Perfect. All right. So there we go. Today we are, as we were mentioning, we're doing a live brew and we're gonna be doing Beza. We're continuing on with the calamities because I really like the look of that box and therefore have to brew the calamities. So I know you've done a little bit of looking at some of them. I haven't even started my Beza brew yet. The only one I've actually made in paper is a Lugan, and my Lugan deck is really annoying.
Wow.
It's all
Sounds
free
good.
counter spells, yeah. So yeah, Lugan's rough, but really quickly I'll read what Beza does, and then from there we can kind of see the direction we're going to go and talk a little bit about some of the strategies and stuff. So
Yep.
Beza the Bounding Spring is 2 double white for a 4/5 elemental elk with probably one of the coolest artworks I've seen. When Beza the Bounding Spring enters, you create a treasure token if opponent controls more land than you, so it gives us a little bit of land ramp. You gain 4 life if they have more life than you. You create 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens if they have more creatures than you, and you draw a card if they have more cards in hand. So it's like
Yeah.
the ultimate catch-up commander.
Yeah. I'm a little sad that the ramp aspect is treasure. But I mean that's not too bad. It's just it kind of feels like we have all of these other mono white creatures that will enter the battlefield and fetch your planes. So
Yeah, like a plains jumper kind
yeah,
of thing.
and maybe a thing to point out here is that you can get all of these effects to happen at the same time if you're lucky. And at first glance, because it's a enter the battlefield, we immediately start thinking we want to maybe flicker Beza or we want to get her back from the graveyard. I'm assuming it's a she. people
I feel like
get
Beza's a
very
she.
upset get upset with me because I get the genders wrong. So,
That's fair.
so that means we might want to have her go to the graveyard, come back, trigger again.
I never even thought about the graveyard from it.
Yeah, it's a thing people forget about White. Is there was maybe an age where there was a lot of resurrection of creature effects,
Yeah.
and so White can do that too. Most people think of black as the color for that, but White does that too. Um, and there's a couple other things we can think about doing there, like bounce. Um, so return Beza to your hand, cast it again, um, and then the last maybe interesting one is we might want to try and make copies of Beza.
Copies of Beza is interesting.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much value that provides, but like I said, it's like you might not always get all the triggers all the time unless you try and be very clever and you engineer situations. And yeah, we can get into that maybe a little bit later. But what strategy ideas were you having about
Oh,
these?
I'm a simple man. It's all group hug in my brain. I want them to have lots of cards in hand so that I can get my effects off as much as I can. So let's look at kind of some if an opponent has more effects. Like I know like land tax is probably expensive. Claim jumper, that's the one.
Yeah. We've got a few potential ramp options here. Maybe I can start with if we're going to do flicker. I know some people might want to call it blink, but that's not really technically correct anymore because we have a blink card which doesn't do any kind of exile and come into the battlefield.
Yeah.
But so flicker type effects, we probably don't want one-off flickers, or we might have a couple creatures that come in and do a flicker effect on ETB. Those are probably not as effective as we want. We want stuff that can do this repeatedly. And so what that means is we want creatures that when they enter the battlefield, they're going to fetch us a land or a treasure or whatever. Most of it is probably going to be things like you said, claim jumper, or maybe, I don't know if you want to read claim jumper because it's got quite a bit of text.
Yeah, claim jumper has a bit of a wall here. So it's 2 and a white for a rabbit mercenary vigilance, 3/3. When claim jumper enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you can search your library for a plains, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Then if an opponent controls more lands than you repeat it again. And then if you do that, you shuffle.
Yeah. So that's a very cool effect because it can double up in cases. The problem with the mono white ramp like this is obviously if your opponents all have the same amount of lands as you or less, you're probably not going to get anything. But that's what makes claim jumper nice. Is claim jumper will just get you a land, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good flicker target, especially if we're going to go for a broad flicker or a repeatable flicker. So I think one of the strategies that'll be important to put cards into here, and it's nice to have like little signpost strategy cards. So the first is obviously claim jumper, but maybe for like a flicker example, we can refer to. Let me have a look in my list because I've got a few options here.
No worries. I'm just setting up some categories here, like our ramp. I added a soul ring to the list as well, just a nice 1 mana simple man soul ring kind of thing.
Yeah, flicker, repeat. So we can start with a very nice, fairly new one, Distinguished Conjurer. So Distinguished Conjurer is a 1/2 creature for 1 and a white, human wizard. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life, which is nice because it works with the fish that you might create with Beza.
Yep.
And obviously Beza come in and triggers as well. And then if you pay 4 and a white and tap it, exile another target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's a little expensive, but it is something that can come out a bit earlier, which is nice to keep your curve a bit lower. And you get the benefit of you can use that at instant speed. It's not limited to just like your own turn, which is very nice. You can protect your things with it. And the added bonus is obviously if the creature enters again while the Distinguished Conjurer is around, then we get a little bit of life gain, which can be useful. And it can partner with Beza
Yeah.
because Beza gains 4 life as well, potentially.
Yeah, Beza is good life gain. Let's add in I like this card, a Discerning Financier.
Oh, yes. That's one of the key ones, I would think, as well.
Yeah, right. Discerning Financier is 2 and a white for a 2/3 human noble. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you create a treasure, which, again, we want them to have more than us. But it also has 2 and a white. You choose another player. That player gains control of target treasure you control, and you draw a card. So that's giving us... We want them to have more stuff. It's in our we want them to have more section, but also it gives us a little bit of card draw, right? To give our treasures away. We don't really need that treasure. Yeah. Beza is also making treasure tokens.
Yeah. Beza is not a particularly violent looking commander. And I think the concept of group hug and diplomacy makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But how about what happens if you've given too much stuff to your opponents and now you don't want them to turn on you?
How do you take it away from them? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was looking a bit into the sort of stacks or like, so let's call it like Ghostly Prison style.
Okay, like some, if you're saying Ghostly Prison, I've got to throw Nils in. I throw Nils into every deck. Nils is a little bit of our protection. Yep. 2 and a white. Human Cleric Legendary Creature. At the beginning of your end step, for each player, you put a 1/1 counter on up to one target they control. Each creature with 1 or more counters on it can't attack you or a planeswalker unless they pay X, where X is the number of counters on it. So I'll make that in our keep them in line. How about that for a section?
Sure.
Keep them in line. And then I'll add a Ghostly Prison to that as well.
Yeah, I called mine Can't Attack Me. But like yeah, it's just one of those things, like it probably doesn't matter too much what you call it as long as it makes sense in the context of the deck.
Yeah, do you want to read Ghostly Prison there?
Sure. Let me just pull it up because...
Yeah, no worries here.
All right. Okay. Ghostly Prison. It's 2 and a white for an enchantment. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. And there's a few that are like that. They all sort of stack up on top of each other, which is kind of nice. So I don't know if we want to add those in quick.
Sure.
As well. So another fairly popular one is Norn's Annex.
Yeah.
So 3 and 2 Phyrexian white mana. So for those who are not familiar with Phyrexian mana, it's you can pay 1 white or 2 life. So for 3 and 4 life, you can get this out. It's an artifact. And creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays a Phyrexian life, white life, for each of those creatures. So essentially, it's you can pay 2 life or a white mana, and if your opponent isn't playing any white mana, then they're going to have to pay life. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah. I'm happy how cheap that card has become. It was so expensive for so long.
Yeah, a bunch of reprints helped it.
Right. There's been some great reprints lately.
That is true. I do get a little scared when they print the same card over and over in multiple sets, but I think it's been a bit better in the last year or so.
Yeah. Let's add in I want to find some ways to force people to get lands so that we can force ramp people up. Field of Ruin, I think, is going to be good in our land section.
Sure.
Because we can destroy 1, but it's going to tutor land for everyone. And if it tutors a land out for everyone, that can put them over the threshold that we get our Beza.
Yep.
I was going to say I think it's Wandering Archaic. Wandering Archaic, yeah, Explore the Vast Lands is the back of it. No one ever plays the back of Wandering Archaic, so The front of Wandering Archaic is 5 mana. Whenever an opponent, it's an Avatar 4/4. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, they may pay 2. If they don't, you may copy it, and you can choose new targets. That's great. But the backside that, again, no one ever casts is Explore the Vastlands. 3 mana. Each player looks at the top 5 cards of their library, reveals a land and or instant and sorcery from among them, then puts the revealed cards this way into their hand and the rest on the bottom. Each player gains 3 life. So that's pushing everyone's life total a little higher too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's in line with what we're trying to do. I think that's fair.
I'm going to make this our group hug card. A nice group hug Wandering Archaic.
So because we're going to be doing things that are maybe, well, I didn't tell you about the secret strategy.
Okay.
We call it the secret sauce. But this kind of leads into it. So, and it's also one of those cards that recently got reprinted, so the prices started to come down a bit. The Pearl Medallion.
Okay.
So Pearl Medallion says it's 2 for an artifact that white spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So because we are in this secret source strategy gonna maybe start to have some land issues, we do want to reduce the cost of our spells, and this is perfect for doing that.
Okay.
And so the secret source here is sacrifice lands.
Okay.
So you've already touched on the one land that we can sacrifice and ramp our opponents. That ramps ourselves as well, but we're losing a land in the process. So it's kind of like balancing out for us a bit. But there are more ways to sacrifice lands. And this is probably one of those things that a lot of people aren't going to think about. So I think that's what makes this kind of an interesting one. So we can put things like Arcane Spyglass in the deck. So this is a bit of an older card, but it's still fairly cheap. My list here says 4 cents, so quite cheap. You pay 4 mana for an artifact. You can pay 2, tap it, and sacrifice a land to draw a card and put a charge counter on Arcane Spyglass. Then you can remove 3 charge counters from Arcane Spyglass to draw a card. So what the cool thing is here is that it lets you sacrifice a land and then draw a card. And then when you've sacrificed enough lands, you can get all those counters you've built up and draw more cards.
I like that.
This obviously means that Beza is probably not going to be drawing us that many cards unless we're playing all our spells out quite a lot. So we'll have to be aware that the card draw side, we've got a lot of support for that. And what usually happens when I design a deck like this, when I have something like, okay, well, I want to remove a land, I need to get the land back, right? So I don't know if you've got any ideas around what could we put in to get our lands back.
We could run a Crucible of Worlds to play from the grave.
Yep.
Nice and easy. And I think Crucible of Worlds has gone down.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, it's still a little expensive. We might cut that one later on. But going on to that one, I saw Aura Fracture, a card I've never seen or played before. And I wanted to put that into your secret sauce one. So Aura Fracture is again on that same line. 2 and a white. You sacrifice a land, destroy target enchantment. And that's actually pretty decent removal for a lot of people to sit there.
Yep. Yeah, especially with the Eldraine set and these new enchantment tokens, and with Duskmourn, all the rooms. So I'm pretty sure that Aura Fracture is going to see some play now because there's a lot more enchantment support.
Yep. Well, you can get, like you said, right? There's a lot of things that bring your permanence back, like a lot of Sun Titan style effects.
Yes. Maybe, so we can probably read Sun Titan because it's pretty popular. Do you want to read that one?
Let me throw Sun Titan in the list here.
Yeah.
Sun Titan.
People don't always realize that the Sun Titan can get you a land back as well.
Yeah.
So even lands that will sacrifice themselves, you can get those back and then use it again.
Well, it's a great target for that Field of Ruin where we just blow those lands up, ramp the board. Sun Titan is a 4 double white for a 6/6 giant with vigilance. When Sun Titan enters or attacks, you can return target permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is also a great flicker target for us.
Yep. So the cool thing with Sun Titan is he's got vigilance and can attack, and we're going to need things that's going to do some damage. And it holds itself up as a blocker, which is nice. If somebody tries to remove it, we flicker it and get something back, which is also really cool. I've got an old Secret Source card, which might be a little tricky to get to work right, but I thought, this is a card that's probably nobody's going to play, but it might work in here. So I want to hear what you think about it. It's from Scourge, which is quite some time ago.
Quite old, yep.
But it's strangely quite cheap, like 13 cents so for a rare, which is interesting, but probably because it's not popular.
That's fair.
It's called Trap Digger. So Trap Digger is 3 and a white for a soldier creature. That's a 1/3. And you can pay 2, a white, and tap it to put a trap counter on target land you control. Its second ability says, sacrifice a land with a trap counter on it. Trap Digger deals 3 damage to target attacking creature without flying.
Not bad.
So it's a bit of a janky removal. You've got to obviously put the counters on things. But I'd like to point out that with our land recovery shenanigans, and if we are getting our land count below our opponents with things like land tax, and there's some others we're going to get into in a moment, we'll actually be able to ramp up using our opponents quite regularly with this kind of creature. So we'll be able to get those lands maybe into play untapped. Some of the things will bring it into play tapped as well, so we have to watch out for that. But there's ways around that. So that can potentially use a land that's tapped and bring something back that's not tapped, and then we've got some mana available again. So we can do some interesting shenanigans around that. So I thought that's a pretty cool one that we can look at.
Okay. I wanted to do, what was the card name? Jailbreak. Because Jailbreak goes into both me wanting to group hug and your strategy of getting our lands back. Jailbreak is 1 and a white. It's a sorcery. You return target permanent card in an opponent's graveyard to the battlefield under their control. When it enters, return up to 1 target permanent with equal or lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. So a nice, easy way for us to get some of our lands actually back and make friends while we do it.
Very cool.
I'm just trying to see what we can bring lands back with. There's not too much. There's a Savine's Reclamation, I think, could be another, because I think we want.
So,
oh, go ahead.
I would caution against going with too many like instant or sorcery type ones, because they're like one-off effects.
Yep.
Let me have a look here. So maybe we could do something like Court of Ardenvale. So it's a 2 and 2 white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch, which is adding some interesting dynamics to the game. Some people really like that.
Mm-hmm.
So for the people who don't know, monarch is in your end step. If you're the monarch, you get to draw a card. And if somebody attacks you while you're the monarch and deals combat damage to you, then they become the monarch.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cool politics you can do around that. The main ability that we're interested in is at the beginning of your upkeep, return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. If you're the monarch, return that permanent card to the battlefield instead. So this is one that can repeatedly get us our lands back.
Yeah. I like this as well because Monarch just introduces like some extra card draw, some extra politics of going back and forth. Going into that same kind of style as well, I put Redemption Choir just now. 2 double white lifelink vampire cleric. When it enters or attacks, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you return target permanent 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. More repeat.
Okay.
I like that. So I'm gonna remove the Savine's Reclamation because it's you can flash it back, but spell copy it. We do get 2 with the. Let me leave Savine's there for the moment, and we'll see how we feel about it at the end. It might be in our maybe cut. I wanted to. We care about life a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than us. To me, that screams we have to play Axis of Mortality. Axis of Mortality is just a really, really fun card to play around with. It adds weird shenanigans to the game. 4 double white. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can have 2 target players exchange life totals. So if we are the high life total, we can give that high life total away so we still keep getting that Beza effect. And we can make friends with it, or we can, if people are just attacking us, we can shove other people down to like 1 life.
Yeah, so that kind of implies that we might want to, as maybe a win condition, play something that can leverage our high life total or our life total, because we might end up making somebody have like 60, 70, maybe even 100 life. So we could play something maybe like, we'll still probably have sufficient life from our own life gain, but what's that card? Rise of the Second Sun?
Oh, Approach of the Second Sun?
Approach of the Second Sun, yeah. Sorry. My
Approach of the Second
architect
Sun.
is
yeah, no worries.
Not liking what I'm doing to it. So
yeah, so 6 and a white. If Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named it this game, you win. Otherwise, you put it into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and gain 7 life. I like that. It's got some life gain. It's got some win us the game.
Yep. So I think also we can go with, I've got a few more interesting, there's some lands that we can use to help us with recovery.
Okay.
But one of the things to keep in mind is if we are playing stuff like a land tax, where we could be like tutoring planes out of our library, we can also play cards that put stuff from our graveyard back into our library. So like if we've got a bunch of lands in our graveyard, we just put those back in the library and then land tax them back.
Yeah.
So we've got that kind of avenue available. The cheaper one that we can go with is Mistveil Plains.
Okay.
So Mistveil Plains is a land that's also a plains. It enters the battlefield tapped, and you can pay 1 white and tap it to put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Activate this ability only if you control 2 or more white permanents, which really shouldn't be a problem. So Mistveil Plains, that's pretty useful in terms of just getting, you've got a land that can recover you things out of your graveyard. You don't have to only get back lands. That just works with this little engine. And then the more expensive one, which is here, it's telling me about 11 euros in Europe at the moment. It's probably a bit more than that. But it's Emeria the Sky Ruin.
Yeah, Emeria is pricey, but it's a nice one.
Yeah. So I think that works very well with this deck. It also is a land that enters tapped, but at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 7 or more planes, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And if you remember, we are going to be playing a lot of creatures that enter the battlefield on purpose to trigger. So those can do things for us. So it really is a bit like we're going to keep getting something back. If someone kills the Sun Titan, we get that back, and then it triggers, and then it can attack again. So it's a nice little engine that supports what we're doing.
Yeah, getting some of the stuff back. Let's get some more. Let's get a few more of these. They have more stuff. So let's get a Gift of Estates for ramp.
Okay.
Gift of Estates is, where is Gift of Estates? Let me take a look here. There we go. Gift of Estates. Yeah, so 1 and a white. If an opponent controls more lands, then you search your library for up to 3 planes, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. That's kind of nice because we still want them to have more. We don't have to play them immediately.
Yep.
You said you wanted a little bit of a stacks kind of theme, like a little bit of a keep them in line stuff, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about a Storm Cauldron?
Storm Cauldron. I'm not familiar with this.
Well, that's because you're a nice person. So Storm Cauldron is nice and cheap. It's 5 mana. Each player can play an additional land on during each of their turn. This is Group Hug. Whenever a land's tapped for mana, you return it to its owner's hand.
Okay.
We can keep them in line a little bit with a Storm Cauldron.
Let me just rethink this.
Let me...
Play additional land in each of the turn. That's pretty cool.
What's the other?
Yeah,
It's
we can try it. I'm not like I like the first part. So if we had stuff that's like, yeah, you can just play extra lands, then I'm kind of okay with that.
yeah, the
But
other part's mean.
the other part, I'm not sure about. But yeah, we
Um,
can we can try it for now.
I threw in a scholarship sponsor as well here. 3 and a white for a 3/3 human advisor. When it enters, each player who controls fewer lands than the player who has the most searches their library for a number of basics equal to the difference, puts them onto the battlefield, and then shuffles. So again, we want them to have more. We're ramping people up kind of nicely.
Yep.
What else? What's the it makes creatures and it makes so how about what's the name of that? It's the horse, the war horse. Let's see if something comes up. If I type war horse. No. It's like a crow and something.
It's not coming to mind because I'm actually thinking about something else. Keeper of the Accord.
Oh, Keeper of the Accord's great.
Yeah. So Keeper of the Accord, it's 3 and a white for a human soldier, 3/4. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more creatures than you, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more lands than you, then you may search your library for a basic plains card and put it onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. So this was one of those ones where I was saying, like, we can sacrifice our land to guarantee that this is always going to trigger.
Yep, I like that one a lot.
But I've actually got a very cool land that I want to read out as well.
Okay, and then I found the card after too.
So you can probably play the typical Myriad landscape to do some land rampy stuff, but how about Flagstones of Traquair? So this is a legendary land that produces white mana. It doesn't enter tapped, which is kind of cool, and has an interesting ability of when it is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may search your library for a plains card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So you sacrifice Flagstones of Traquair, and you basically get a plains out of that, comes in tapped, and then you recover the land. So you can try and get it again later, or if you've got your engine running with one of these other items that can just get you your permanents back onto the battlefield, you can just put it back. So it's pretty good in this deck, I would say.
I like that. That's the perfect sacrifice outlet for our. Is it a? But it's sadly it's not a plane, so we can't tutor it. But it's still great.
Yeah. We have other ways to get it out back into the battlefield, so I think it'll be fine.
Yeah. The one I was thinking is a crow and horse. This is a 4-mana artifact. It's a 0/4 defender. When it enters, an opponent gains control of it. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent creates a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So everyone's going to keep making soldiers with this horse.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Okay. What are we at? We're at 62. We're looking good for a size here. I'm really happy with that jailbreak. I really like that card a lot. What do we think about? I think our ramp section's pretty light. We gotta get that one going. But I was gonna say maybe a Knight of the White Orchid.
Yep.
Especially if we're playing stuff where we're gonna be throwing our lands away, then this is always gonna be good for us in this deck.
Yep.
We'll throw that in. We want them to have.
We've got a few options there. I don't have all of them in my list, but I have a few. So they're all roughly the same kind of effect. So Loyal Warhound, 1 and a white, 3/1 Vigilance. It's a dog. And when it enters, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you search your library for basic plains and put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle.
Oh, I just found a great one. Sand Scout, did you have that one on your list?
No.
So Sand Scout is like the perfect card for how you're going. This is a Thunder Junction card. It's 1 and a white. It's a human scout 2/2. When it enters, if an opponent controls more lands than you search your library for a desert, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So we'll have to see what deserts there are. But whenever one or more lands are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you create a 1/1 red, green, and white Sand Warrior trigger. Triggers only once each turn.
I like this. Yeah, so let me just see how many deserts we have in the mono white.
Yeah, see if there's actually any
19.
deserts that matter. Oh, there is.
Wow.
There is a few.
Oof. Yeah, there's a lot. a lot of them are colorless, so we might have to be careful with that. But and we probably won't want to scavenger grounds ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they've got quite a few. Some sacrifice themselves. Yeah.
Okay. Let's put 2 deserts in.
Yeah.
We really want that for the token creation.
So let's see. I think the one that I like the most might be Chefet Dunes. So that one, it's a desert. It produces colorless mana, or you can tap, pay 1 life to add white mana, which I like it when they do that because it gives you an alternative, so you don't always have to pay life.
Yep.
But if you pay 4, tap it, sacrifice a desert, so not necessarily itself, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So you can use it to do, okay, only as a sorcery, so you have to do it in your main phase, but you can use it as a little, let's make all my creatures a bit bigger, then I go into combat and do some damage. But just being able to sacrifice a desert means you can probably do some shenanigans with the different deserts. And if we do that whole recycling thing, so maybe I should read one of the recyclers just so everybody has that as an option.
Okay.
I like the new one that came with Bloomburrow. So I'll read that one. Bark Form Harvester. 3 mana for a 2/3 artifact creature shapeshifter. So it has Changeling, so it's all creature types. But it also has Reach, and its second ability is pay 2 and put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So the reason why I like this one, firstly, it has Reach, so it can block a flyer if you need it, but it also can be used as many times as you like. As long as you got mana available, you can just keep using this. So this, with the desert engine there, would actually be pretty cool because you can keep tutoring up the desert that you put back in your library.
Okay. Let's I want to add a Wall of Shards as well. Have you seen that one before?
I think so.
Yeah. It's 1 and a white. It's got Defender flying 1/8, so it's also giving us that little defender we need, or the flying we need. It has a cumulative upkeep. An opponent gains 1 life.
Yeah, that can get real good for getting the life gain trigger from Beza. And an interesting side effect of this is going to be like, who do you give that life to?
Yep.
So that can create some serious difficult moments at the table where it's like, yeah, it's been out for 10 turns. Somebody's going to get 10 life. Let's see who wants the life. What are you going to do for me?
And then I have another one that's I think that'll fit that theme as well, for another little flying blocker. Again, a multi-use kind of thing. 1 and a white for Flumph. 0/4 Defender Jellyfish flying. When it's dealt damage, you and target opponent each draw a card. So it doesn't have to. It's a great blocker, great politics tool, a good source of card draw for us. We can just say swing into it.
Yeah.
Let's get that into our group hug section.
Yeah, I've got another cool card that when I saw it, I was like, man, nobody's talking about this, but this is a very useful card in any situation where you want to bounce something. But it obviously targets your things. Mm-hmm. So Meticulous Excavation. It's 1 white for an enchantment, and you can pay 2 and a white to return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. So return a land if you need to instigate that. Return a creature if you need to instigate the creature side of things.
Well, it also gives us a little protection too if we need it, right?
Yeah. I'm not really reading the next part because I don't understand why that's on there. I just don't understand it. Maybe someone can explain. But if it has an earth, instead exile it, then return that card to its owner's hand. Activate only during your turn. I don't understand the unearth part.
Just a way to get around that kind of stuff. But
so is that because unearth is like it's gonna exile itself if it were to leave? And it needs to replace
exiles it instead. So this is still leaving it exiled.
Okay. All right.
Let's do.
But yeah, I like that still.
Let's give ourselves a little bit of draw, but group hug draw. So let's cut a deal. Nice cheat piece there. Cut a deal is each opponent draws a card, then you draw a card for each opponent who drew this way.
Sure.
Nice little group hug spot. And then I wanted to do as well, Secret Rendezvous. You and target opponent draw 3 cards.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. I only use that in certain decks where I know that it's going to be okay.
I love to give people cards. I never care. And then I had one more help everyone out, and it's Truce. Truce is a card you never really see played. But it does both the things we want in our deck. Truce is an instant. It's 2 and a white. Each player may draw up to 2 cards. For each card less than 2 they draw, that player gains 2 life. So if we want to get our card, if we don't want to have, let's say we want to keep our hand lower than other people so we can trigger Beza again, we can just gain life, right? Let's say that we want to gain life and not get right? We can just use it kind of differently for both of us, but it's still going to give people either life or cards in hand.
Yeah. So how about we put the Sad Robot in as well?
Okay.
So Sad Robot is Solemn Simulacrum, 4 mana for a artifact creature golem. That's a 2/2. When Solemn Simulacrum enters, you may search your library for a basic land and put that onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. When Solemn Simulacrum dies, you may draw a card. So it doesn't work with the Sun Titan, but with certain other recovery that we have, that'll be fine. But the thinking here is that you put it out. If someone attacks you, you've got a blocker, and then you get to draw a card, or you can just flicker it. Because that's another thing that with some of these flicker abilities that we're going to have, we can flicker the Solemn Simulacrum to get the ramp, and it can stop an attack.
Yeah.
If the creature doesn't have trample. So maybe then we should look at what I call flicker all.
Before we do that, I had 2 pieces of removal I wanted to throw in. I never put any removal in, but and they're kind of staples and everything, but I think that they really, really function super good with this deck because they're going to give creatures, right? So it's going to be Stroke of Midnight is the first one.
Yep.
So Stroke of Midnight is 2 and a white. You destroy target non-land permanent. Its controller gets a 1/1 white human. That's great because, again, it's doing what we want. We want them to have more stuff, so it's perfect to blow up an annoying enchantment. And then the same is going to be Generous Gifts as well. We want them to have more creatures, right? So Generous Gift is essentially the same thing. Destroy target permanent. This can hit other people's lands as well. Could hit our own land if we need to. But its controller gets a 3/3 elephant.
Yeah. So we'd probably be more comfortable playing Path to Exile as well then, right?
Oh, yeah. That's a great piece of removal because, again, that's force ramp. They don't have to take it, but who doesn't, right?
Yeah. So Path to Exile, for the people who don't know this card yet, 1 white, instant, exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So we do want to give our opponents lands in this case, but if we're really struggling, we use it to ramp ourselves.
Yep.
So also we can go with something like Skyclave Apparition.
Okay. Skyclave. What's this?
So Skyclave Apparition is 1 and 2 white for a core spirit 2/2 creature. When Skyclave Apparition enters, exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent you don't control with mana value 4 or less. So the reason why this is useful, but sometimes it doesn't really work so well, is if your opponent's playing bigger stuff that it can't hit, but very often they've got stuff that might just be a little annoying and it's right in that 4 or less. And we're okay with then converting that into a creature. And the cool thing here is that thing that you exile doesn't come back. So the second part says when Skyclave Apparition leaves the battlefield, so when it dies, the exiled card's owner creates an XX blue illusion creature token where X is the mana value of the exiled card. So if it's 4 mana value, then that is just a 4/4 blue illusion. It's on the ground, so it's probably fine. We might have a little fish that we can use to block, so it should be okay.
Yeah.
And the reason that it's a little difficult also is that you can't exile tokens. So it's only going to exile things that are non-tokens.
Is it
If your
it's a non-token
opponent's
one?
Yeah, so it's target non-land, non-token permanent.
Interesting. That's a weird distinction.
Yeah. What's interesting here also is if your opponent has an annoying commander that's fairly cheap. Maybe Yuriko doesn't really matter, but because it's just going to come back cheap anyways, because that's really
Mhm.
broken. But you could just keep exiling that problem commander, and it's fine. You're creating creatures for your opponent, but if you flicker your Beza with one of your repeat abilities, then you'll be okay.
Yeah. Let's put in a teleportation circle. I think that that's something we want for sure for a blink in the start of our blink cards.
Indeed.
Create a new category, blink. Because a lot of times I'm going to want to blink Beza, but like you said, that Skyclave is a great target for it.
Yeah.
I like the more repeatable ones, but there's just too many good instant ones like that.
Oh,
good.
Well, I'm going to talk over there because I'm going to give you an instant speed blink, Eldrazi Displacer.
Okay.
So Eldrazi Displacer is 2 and a white for a colorless Eldrazi 3/3. It's got Devoid, so that's what makes it colorless. You can pay 2 and 1 colorless, so you have to have a colorless mana available, which is important. We're going to have to play those. Exile another target creature, then return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So these kinds of ones is the ones that we want over the instant speed ephemerate or something like that.
The only problem is how do we get that colorless reliably so that it's not just a dead card?
Yeah, so because we have some deserts, we can put some colorless deserts in there.
Okay, so what do we have for our deserts? Let's take a look, because we do have a desert tutor.
Yeah. So how about Painted Bluffs?
Okay, let's take a look.
So Painted Bluffs is it's a colorless desert, but it also has the ability where you can pay 1, tap it to add 1 mana of any color. So it can filter your colorless or whatever you want. So that can help.
How about Desert of the True? We add the ability to cycle it away if we don't need it.
Sure. Yeah.
Desert of the True. Let's throw in a Conjurer's Closet.
Yep. So Conjurer's Closet is 5 for an artifact. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. How about another desert, Dunes of the Dead?
Dunes of the Dead, okay.
Yeah, so it's produces colorless mana, but when Dunes of the Dead is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token.
Yeah, that works great for us. I'm just looking if there's any more deserts. No, I think we're good for our deserts there, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can maybe play one more Conduit Pylons.
Let's honestly put in just a waste. One waste.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Because it counts as a basic land. So
yeah, we've got lots of stuff that can tutor us basic lands, right?
Yeah.
Let me see here. A lot of these look for planes, but I still think we're okay with one waste, and then maybe let's do a terramorphic just to have another reliable way.
Yeah. I'd put the Evolving Wilds in along with that as well.
Yep. Again, like it's they're both lands that are going to throw away if we have any of our recursion engines. They're constantly getting us lands a return.
Yep.
Which is nice. What else do we have that is each turn blink?
So let me just get it back on my screen. So there is Gilrayan, Dunedain Protector.
Yep.
It's 2 and a white for a legendary creature, Human Noble, from the Lord of the Rings. 2/3 creature. And you can pay 2, tap it, exile another target creature you control. You may return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If you don't, at the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control with a vigilance counter and a lifelink counter on it.
Yep.
So it's a little complicated sounding, but it's basically allowing you to do this in any turn. And so you either immediately return what you've flickered to its owner's control. The reason why they word it like that is because maybe you stole something from someone, and like a Zedru deck or something. I think that's right.
Yeah,
Prove
something
me
like that. Yeah.
wrong. Rune or somebody is doing stuff. So um, you could get somebody else's thing, and then you flicker it, and then they get it back again. But you probably, in this case, just going to use it for your stuff. And if you do this in your opponent's turn, you can choose to get it back at the end step. And the reason for that might be that they're going to board wipe or attempt something that you know is going to happen. So you rather wait for it to come back later. And if you wait, then you get a bit more, like the vigilance counter and the lifelink counter.
Yep. I found another card I want to throw in here quickly, and though we want them to have more stuff, it's Yes Man, Personal Securitron. This is 2 and a white for a 2/2 robot. You tap it, target opponent gains control of Yes Man. When they do, you draw 2 cards, put a quest counter on it, activate only during your turn. Then, when Yes Man leaves the battlefield, its owner creates a tapped 1/1 soldier for each quest counter on it. So, again, a thing that matters about who actually owns it, which is us. But I really like passing that around as a draw engine.
Okay.
It's like a nice cheap $2 give it, and while it's over there, it's going to count as an extra creature. We're not, if we had access to like red, we'd have the ability to pass our stuff around. Like the red has a lot of those force donate abilities, but
yeah,
sadly we don't.
And blue as well.
Yeah, exactly. Blue's another great one for it. I'm looking at, I'm just trying to see if there's anything else we can force donate with, but I don't think we can. So let's, is there any more? I still like the idea of some of those instant speed blinks like Parting Gust and stuff like that.
Yeah, we can maybe put 1 or 2 of those. I think that'll be okay.
Yeah, because I like this one. Really quickly. So Parting Gust, it works really nicely for us. It's a double white instant. You gift a tapped fish, so we are giving a creature away with it. Exile target non-token creature. If the gift wasn't promised, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So it's something we can protect ourselves with. We can force ramp other things. Like I like the idea of it.
So how about Eerie Interlude?
That's a multi-blink, right?
Yeah, but you get to choose how many.
Yeah.
So Eerie Interlude is 2 and a white for an instant. Exile any number of target creatures you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
Yep, I like that one a lot.
Yeah, there's a couple more in that vein. They're a little bit more expensive. And so these are the ones that I typically pick over the one-off type flickers. So the first one is Lazel's Acrobatics. 3 and a white for an instant. Exile all non-creature tokens you control, then roll a d20. Return those, if you roll a 1 to a 9, return those to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Or, and this is the part of this one that I like, if you roll a 10 to a 20, which is quite achievable. I mean, it's like 50-50.
Yep.
Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control, and then exile them again. Return those to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So you get like a double flicker effect. So that can like kind of supercharge you a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It might not work so well with Beza, but with everything else, it'll be like, yeah, I maybe we put a Zuran Orb in there, we sacrifice all our lands and gain a bunch of life, and then we flicker our land recovery engines and tutors and whatnots, and then they all come back in and like mega get us back on track quickly. So we can do some interesting shenanigans with that.
I threw in another round because it does that same kind of effect. Another round is XX 2 and a white. You exile any number of target creatures you control, then return them to the battlefield under their owner's control, and you repeat it X or more times. So if we have something like your Skyclave out that's like a great one, the Skyclave, like if we can hit that like even 4 times kind of thing, like if we can do it 4 exiles is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
In that vein of enter and destroy kind of thing, like good flicker targets, how about a Lauren?
Yep.
Again, gives us
the draw as well.
So, it gives us that draw. Let's make a section of creatures to flicker. Creatures to flicker. Looking at our list, do we want to take out that Storm Cauldron? Do you think that's too mean?
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit too mean.
Yeah, we're pretty group hug, and then all of a sudden having a storm cauldron in there, it just doesn't seem nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem on the theme, because right now we're pretty good. We have some shenanigans we can do. We're given some love around the table. We're not being too mean, and then all of a sudden, like we're just out of the blue, like a winter orb or something.
Yeah. So how about we put in a getaway glamour? So
Okay.
that can get us a bit of like instant speed, flicker, or destruction.
What is this
So
one?
getaway glamour is one white, and then it's an instant, and it has spree. Spree says you can choose one or more additional costs. If you +1, you can exile target non-token creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And if you +2, destroy target creature if no other creature has greater power. So if opponent's causing some issues there, you can use this to remove their big creature. And just to clarify for everyone, so the way this works is you pay the one white and then any additional cost, but only once. It's not like the
It's now
Roomba
multi-kicker,
or other
sadly,
ones
yeah.
that, yeah. So it'll just be like one white and a one, or one white, a one and a two, or a one white and a two. So you will pick which makes sense for you. And it's been quite a useful combat trick as well. So it's got that versatility. I can remove something, or I want to flicker something, and maybe the flicker thing does the removal as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I guess because you could flicker you could flicker their big one and then destroy their next biggest one, which is kind of annoying.
Yep.
I just threw an attempt with bunnies because I'm a simple man. It does what we want. Gives creatures away, gives that stuff away. It's 2 and a white, has tempting offer. You draw a card and create a 1/1 white rabbit. Then each opponent may draw a card and create a 1/1 white rabbit. For each opponent who does, you draw a card and you get a rabbit. Do we want is there anything that sacrifices creatures that isn't actually this doesn't sacrifice, but I just thought of one other possible force ramp, Winds of Abandon. Winds of Abandon is 1 and a white. Exile target creature you don't control. For each creature card exiled this way, its controller searches their library for basic land. Those players put those cards onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So it doesn't say may. If they have basics, they do have to do it.
So
yes. And then it has overload. 4 double white, and you can do it for all creatures.
I'm just having a look. Do we want to consider maybe a bit of amplification type stuff where this is kind of a pricey strategy. When I'm looking at the ones I got on my list here, it's saying 104 euros for just 6 cards.
Okay.
But the one cheaper one is Blade of Selves.
For some myriad?
Yeah. So Blade of Selves is 2 for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature has myriad. Its equip cost is 4. And the thinking there is you could put that on Beza if you want, and get triggers like that, or you can put it on one of your ETB creatures and get triggers like that as well.
Do we want to? I was going to say, do we want to do Legion Loyalty instead?
What does Legion Loyalty do?
It's creatures you control have myriad, so all of our creatures. So without having to equip, we can do it. So then every time we swing out with like a Skyclave, you get 3 Skyclaves.
Well, why don't we do both?
Okay. Blade of Selves. I'm going to put that in our technical. It's not really a flicker, but it's extra. I'll call it extra ETB.
Yeah. The other ones people can look up are Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, Mondrak, Glory Dominus. Panharmonicon has dropped in price, so that is a possibility as well.
Let's throw extra ETB and then Legion Loyalty.
Yeah, Anointed Procession, and even Preston the Vanisher.
Preston's not bad.
Yeah, I think Panharmonicon is probably better for us.
Yeah, Panharmonicon is going to be great in anything like that.
So Panharmonicon, 4 mana for an artifact. If an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of opponent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. That one's come down in price. It's around 2-3 euros. I don't know the America's pricing, but
it's like $4 over here. It's not too bad. I'm just looking. There's a lot of these if they have more lands than us cards. Oh, why don't we throw in a Weathered Wayfarer?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good one.
Because Weathered Wayfarer does do what we want with people having more creatures than us. It's also going to let us go and grab some of those really good lands that we have.
Yep.
Like grabbing Emiria is great. Like Emiria, the Skyroom's great. Grabbing the Mistvale Plains, the Flagstones, like those are all really, really solid ones. Grabbing that waste so that we don't have to worry about our colorless. I like that. What are we at?
How about a Scare Tyler?
Every time it's tapped, we dump lands in. Is that one?
So Scare Tyler's actually got two parts to it, which are both useful to us. So Scare Tyler is 4 for an artifact creature Scarecrow. That's a 1/4, and that 4 toughness does matter. Whenever Scare Tyler becomes tapped, choose one. The first option is you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So if we have stuff that gets the lands to our hand, some of the recovery might put it in our hand, then this can actually put it on as ramp. Or return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So that's again that Flagstones with Trakir. With the Scare Tyler, it puts it back straight onto the battlefield, which is very useful.
Yep.
So I like the Scare Tyler. It's a little tricky because you might have to attack somebody, negotiate to attack them, but we've got reasons to negotiate.
Yep.
Unless we can have some other stuff that's like tap a creature as well. There's things you can find stuff that's like tap a creature, produce mana, or things like that. But I don't know if we need that in this deck.
Yeah, no, I like that one.
One other card that I really like as one of these sort of, I like to call this as recursion. Like you just take the thing out your graveyard, put it in your library. Is a Hoverstone Pilgrim. It's a 5 mana, 2/5 flying artifact creature golem with Ward 2, which is pretty cool.
What's it called?
And Hoverstone Pilgrim.
Hoverstone Pilgrim.
Yeah.
There we go.
And if you pay 2, put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. So you can see, oh, there's a person with some card I don't like in the graveyard. Let's send that packing. And you can pay that as much as you want.
Yep.
Or as much mana you have. So that's pretty cool. And it's a flyer.
I added a few things to our ramp section there. I just gave us a Marble Diamond. 2 mana, it enters tapped and then taps for white. Solid for early slow. And then a Mind Stone as well. 2 mana, it taps for colorless, and you can pay 1, sack it to draw. Because I think we're a little slow on a little bit of ramp. I like where we're going with it. We actually have a lot more removal than I normally put into a deck. Removal's crazy.
How about maybe this is another colorless option? A Mikikoro, Center of the Sea.
Yep, I like that one.
So it's a legendary land that can tap and produce colorless mana, or you can pay 2 and tap it. Each player draws a card.
Yep. Another great target as well for our Weather Wayfarer. Nice little group hug.
Yep.
You like to see it.
We'll have enough colorless mana to make sure we don't run into problems with the Displacer.
Yeah.
So there is a Planeswalker that can do some exile stuff for us as well.
Okay.
The only downside in my mind is that it's a little expensive. It's the Eternal Wanderer. It's 4 and 2 white for a legendary Planeswalker. The Eternal Wanderer has a bit of a Staxia effect for itself, which is okay, I think. No more than 1 creature can attack the Eternal Wanderer each combat. So that can kind of keep it under check. Like if people want to swing out, we've already got a few stacks things. It makes it a bit harder to deal with. When you +1, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of that player's next end step. It's worded like that because there's some ways that maybe you could give it like a instant speed activation. but I don't think we have access to that in white. 0 is create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with double strike, which could be important for us, especially if we're trying to close out a game.
Mm-hmm.
And the -4 is for each player, choose a creature that player controls. Each player sacrifices all creatures they control, not chosen this way.
The fact that can go off the first time it drops is brutal.
Yeah, its loyalty is 5, so you can -4 straight away. And if you remember, we've got a bunch of instant speed flicker abilities. So what you can do is use those to flicker some stuff out. And then you, like, for example, flicker Beza out, and then you save the flicker creature. So then Beza comes back in, and you at least have multiple creatures available then to go to combat with in your next turn. And that probably will even things out. Like if you've given too much stuff to your opponents, then you can reclaim a reasonable board state. But it's optional. You don't have to play that if you don't like that kind of effect.
I'm throwing Ghostway in for a blanket protection for us that way. Ghostway is exile each creature you control, return them under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So that's going to save us that board wipe, that little bit of a delayed. Kind of a nice little and then I also threw in Fortune, Loyal Steed. Okay. That's another... the saddle mechanic is weird, but so Fortune is 2 and a white, legendary creature, beast mount. When it enters, you scry 2. When it attacks while saddled at the end of combat, exile it and up to one other creature that saddled it, then return them both to the battlefield under their owner's control. So again, a nice repeatable blink. All we have to do is attack with it and try to make friends, right? But if we have something I think it's pretty easy to make a deal. Hey, Thunder, let me attack you with this 2. I'm going to blow up like Sherman's very annoying card, right?
Yeah. So I've got one more. I mean, there's a few more potential bounce things. Like we could do Cloudstone Curio, Dust Elemental. These are cool cards that can kind of get you some bounce and repeatable stuff happening. But maybe one that's a little bit more political is Erratic Portal. So it's a bit of an old card. It's been reprinted, so its price isn't too high. It's like a couple of euros.
Yeah, $3 it looks like, yeah.
4 mana for an artifact. You can pay 1, tap it, return target creature to, and my copy here says, return target creature to owner's hand unless its controller pays 1. So you target your own creature, bounce your own thing, that can work. Or if you're going to do a board wipe, you make a deal with someone and say, I'll save your creature for you if you do this for me.
Yeah.
And then you're not wasting your bounce effect. One side effect of this is it can be very annoying. In blue, you've got the Crystal Shard, and there's another similar artifact in blue as well that does the same thing. But these ones, that little pay 1, that can really hurt people because then they're like, yeah, I'm going to use all my mana to put this creature out, but he's got the Erratic Portal. Maybe I need to make a deal, otherwise he's going to bounce it straight back to my hand and like stasis me or like hold me back. So I kind of like these types of artifacts because it makes people have to think, and if they're not paying attention, then too bad.
Well, yeah, it's even in its worst case scenario, it's great for us. Putting Beza back into our hand isn't going to hurt us.
Yeah.
And again, worst case scenario, if you tap out, you risk losing your big creatures.
Yep.
Speaking of the needing to pay 1, I threw a mana tithe in. It's so funny to mana tithe people's ramp. It's like one of my favorite things to do. I just threw one of those in there. We're looking pretty good. We're at 100. We're at 101 cards. So
okay.
So I'm maybe I take out the mana tithe. Maybe I don't be mean.
Yeah, put it in the maybe board on the side.
The maybe board. Hey, no, I'll take it out. We're trying to be nice. We shouldn't be that mean. The erratic is nice. It's extra, but just knowing my heart, I love to mana tithe people's. It wrecks games for people. I was at the face-to-face in Red Deer. Sherman kept like a pretty good hand, and he had some ramp, and he's like, I'll do this, and he grabbed his deck. I was like, oh, wait just a minute. And I hit him with that mana tithe, and he couldn't get up to the lands. It was, yeah. And then I died for the rest of the night for it. Sherman was vengeful that day. But
Yeah.
that was good. No, I think that
Yeah.
there's I think we're looking pretty good. We're not mean, which is what I wanted with Beza.
Yep.
We have a lot of options with things. We're not crazy expensive for a deck with a $20 commander. We're not crazy expensive. The Crucible is like one of our more expensive pieces. We could probably like cut a budget version down. I've been trying to do that with a lot of my decks lately, like making the deck and then just a budget version on the side of like you could still function it with it. I think a lot of people like the like looking at the budget version, but again,
Yep.
to $200 is not an insane for, especially like when we're live brewing and we've got like no problem with price. We're just throwing things on the list. I think it's not a bad like full power list for like a pretty nice like mono group hug.
And maybe something to just point out to everyone is if you've got any recommendations, just leave a comment. Like come into the YouTube, watch, find all the ideas, and then leave a comment under there. I'm sure somebody like Daniel's going to read it.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Instagram and like Discord, like especially like if you're on Patreon, like you have a private chat for like building and stuff. But there is still just like a free tier through Patreon and stuff, and you get like the general chat and Discord. It's a great place to like chat for it and everything. But let me know if there's other things that should be in a list like this. Like I personally think this is pretty unique to most Blink strategies. Like to me, this doesn't look like an Elish Norn deck. It doesn't look like a Preston deck, right? Like it looks like a nice mix of like of group hug, a little keep them in line. We've got 20 pieces that are like trying to care about them having more stuff than us.
Yeah, and what a weird sacrifice my lands in mono white.
Yeah, the mono white land sacrifice is definitely a unique path to go.
Yeah,
but yeah, like I don't think there's anything crazy that we're missing. Obviously, I'm
pretty sure if we fiddle with the lands a bit, we can get some very interesting self-sacrifice lands in there and stuff. And that's one of those areas. It's like we can probably talk for days because there's just so many lands now. But
yeah, I was gonna say you can definitely like power this up, like you were saying, with an Elish Norn, with your Mondrak, like all of your token doublers kind of thing, right? You can put like you can put a Smothering Tithe in here. I get it. I never built a Smothering Tithe. I'm boring.
The thing you have to be careful with is you're aiming to double your triggers more than your tokens because you're not really going to benefit from out tokening your opponents. And you might also want to carry a few more wipes just in case things get a bit out of hand because you're helping people draw cards, you're helping people get extra tokens, and some people are going to really take advantage of that. And it's like at that moment you might be like, well, maybe I've made a mistake. So having a way to clean up a little bit of a mess can help. So you can always add a little bit more wrathy things. And I look for things, maybe one to mention, which is fairly new, is the Starfall Invocation.
Yeah.
It's 3 and 2 white. For a sorcery, you gift the card. Destroy all creatures. If the gift was promised, return a creature card from put into your graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. So in a case like that, you gift the card, give someone an extra card to draw, and then Beza comes out. So you kill Beza, bring her back, and you get triggers. So that I think is pretty neat. I didn't see many like that. The rest are just like force people to sacrifice things, keep one of your creatures alive, that kind of thing. But those ones maybe aren't as useful as the invocation. And I'd love to see more of these types of destroy everything, return one thing from the graveyard type wraths for white. Black has some of them like that. But yeah, it's a pretty neat type of wrath. So I like that.
I had a few suggestions I want to go through quickly for some last minute things.
Sure.
So number one is I think we've got to throw in a Battle Angels of Tyr. Battle Angels of Tyr is 2 double white, flying 4/4. It has Myriad, which is great. When it deals combat damage to a player, we draw a card if they have more cards in hand than each other player. Get a treasure token if they have more lands, and you gain 3 life if they have more life. So I think it's like cool, yeah. It's right on our thing.
And it's a flyer, right?
Yeah, so. It's a flyer. I was going to say bovine intervention. Let's dump Savine's reclamation. That's one of the ones we don't need. So it's not as repeatable as we want. Where was my bovine?
Yeah, bovine intervention.
There we go. Yeah. Destroy target artifact or creature. Its controller gets a 2/2 white ox. So it's removal, but it's still leaving something in place.
Yep.
Right? So
remove the really problematic thing, give them a little cow.
Yep.
You can say no to a cow.
And then I thought another keep them in line card could be kind of nice of Settle the Wreckage. 2 double white, you exile all attacking creatures target player controls. That player may search their library for that many basics, put them into the battlefield, tap, then shuffle.
Yeah. Settle the Wreckage is pretty cool.
It keeps them in line a little bit. It also maybe ramps them up. So we've got to get rid of... Oh, and then the last one was this Bronzebeak Foragers. Because I keep wanting to put this Bronzebeak. I bought a bunch of them when they came out, and I haven't put them in a single deck yet. So it's... I just like it as a blink possible. So this is 3 and a white for a 3/4 dinosaur. When it enters the battlefield for each opponent, exile up to one target non-land permanent they control until it leaves. So that's great ETB removal. And then X and a white, you put target I can't talk. Put target card with mana value X exiled with Bronzebeak Forager into its owner's graveyard. You gain X life. So it's in a worst case, it's a little life gain spot for us, but that mass like you can't flicker a Grasp of Fate in a deck like this, but you can flicker this annoying thing, right?
Yep.
So creatures to flicker, put this over into our blink. You know what? No, you said we call it flicker.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move all of these over to flicker.
Yeah. So if anyone is wanting to query that, come into the 99 chat and I'll give you the link which shows you
the difference.
Why we can't use blink.
Yeah, blink doesn't come up with it. So we've got to cut 3 things. What do we want to take out of here? Do we want to drop the approach, or do we like that as a win con?
I think that's one of those ones we can put as a maybe, like on the sideboard, because it's one of those things like you play it if you want those potential instant win cons, but it's not like compulsory, right? You don't have to do that.
And then we'd have to drop 2 more. So what do we drop out of our list? I really like our keep them in line list. Oh, Noble Heritage is another one that I really like. It's as far as like a keep them in line thing. Commander creatures you own have whenever it enters and at the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put 2/1/1 counters on it. For each opponent who does, you gain pro from them. I like that, and it maybe makes Beza big.
Yeah, I'd put that in the maybe board as well.
Okay, maybe board. And then I'll put Orzhov Advocist also in the maybe board.
Yeah, because the thing is, we will probably want to flicker Beza, and I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, making it. I see what you're saying. Yeah, let me do Orzhov Advocist there. Do we want to...
Architect is on the fritz for me. It will not show me the strategies.
Oh, maybe a refresh?
I've been trying to refresh this whole time. I'm going to have to speak to them.
Well, it's there. You got to believe. I was going to say maybe let's... do we want to cut Crucible of Worlds? It's nice recursion, but we have other good recursion pieces, and it's going to take $30 off our deck, right?
Yeah, that's a good maybe board option.
Maybe board,
like if you got the money for it, you can put it in. Otherwise, we're cutting our costs down. And
then we've got one more. I like our sacrifice stuff. I think that's cool.
Yeah. Let's see.
I'm gonna throw a Zuran Orb in the maybe board as well.
Sure. Yeah, it's one of those things where we didn't put tutors in here to make our. Sometimes with a monocolored deck, you're going to struggle to make your janky strategies work.
Yeah.
And that's why you need to put a couple tutors in there just to even things out.
Just to find them, yeah.
So if you're going to go Zuran Orb, you might want to put tutors in there because it's 0 mana to put it out, but all it does is sacrifice a land and gain you a couple life points. It's not really doing all that much. So if you've got tutors, then you can maybe go with that because then it's like, yeah, I can immediately get this out very quickly and immediately start sacking a whole bunch of lands and then do some other crazy combo. But yeah, we've got a bunch of other useful sacrifice land creatures and things there, so I think that's fine.
I moved Hoverstone Pilgrim to the maybe board. It's a good flyer. It's got ward. It's just a high cost one, 5 and then 2 to get that ability going. So I just moved that over into our maybe board. That gives us an extra space, and then it leaves us at our nice 100 card list.
Yeah.
I really like this. I think the mix of group hug stuff with also like a group hug blink deck is unorthodox.
Yeah.
I really like this meticulous excavation, the fact that we can dump our mana into it if we need it. There's basically, like, I'm sure every play group has like a normal green player, right? Like I've got multiple green players in mind. So having people ramp out lots is very, very common. So I think that we have like a ton of, like, we only have 5 cards in our actual ramp, quote unquote, section, but we have so many things that like ramp us to other cards, right? Like so many go grab lands. Our commander acts as a ramp.
Yeah.
A ramp, a draw engine. Every time we flicker Beza, we should be getting at least one of these abilities off. I can't see many scenarios where we don't. And in a scenario where we aren't getting it, that's great. We're doing awesome then, right? If we have the highest life, the most creatures, the most lands, and the most cards in hand in a mono white deck, we're doing something very, very right.
Yeah, and just if anyone decides to play this deck, just keep in mind you can engineer the scenario you need to get that little bit of advantage. You can flicker things and get it back at the end of the turn on purpose, because then it takes away one of your creatures, maybe multiple of your creatures, and then when you flicker Beza, you can do that immediately. So if you get enough of these little interactive cards out, then you're gonna get the advantage that you want.
Yep.
Sacrifice your land, get your lands back. Flicker some creatures, get more creatures generated. We're probably not going to benefit that much from the draw, but that's probably okay because we're going to be drawing anyways. And then, the life gain, well, we'll see. I don't think too much about gaining lots of life, but there are things you can do around that. If you want to add a win con around that, then you got to add that big watchtower thing that you just dump 50 life and then burn a player out. So
you can also you can be pretty mean in a deck like this if you want. Like you could go like land wipes. You could, because you've got the flicker, you have the ability to save your creatures. So you could throw it into a Armageddon destroy all lands kind of thing. Because again, we want people to have more lands. I don't care if I have no lands, because then my flicker engine, once it's online, is going to keep going off, right? You could go very, very mean with Beza, evil elk, but
yeah, I'd be interested to see people trying to build it that way. I just feel like when you do something like that, you need to add another color because you want to increase your scope a little bit. You could go Avacyn World Slayer, but that goes into any mono white. So.
Yeah, if these calamities had partner, they would be some of my favorite cards. Like I would build so many partner calamity decks, like just I would call them my natural disaster decks. They'd be awesome. Like, could you imagine like Beza and a Lugan together, where you're making lands into islands, you're getting your free costs.
If we speculate a little on what if, because to determine color identity you need to see a mana symbol, right?
Yep.
So what if Beza on ETB you could choose to just make a blue mana or something, because it makes blue fish instead of a treasure. Maybe that could have been a thing. And that would have expanded the colors just a little bit, and you get all the extra flicker stuff.
Yeah, so, if the word blue instead of the mana symbol became the thing, then Beza being a Azorius deck, very, very different, with like the options of what you can do with Azorius kind of blink, the blue return creatures. Like you could be brutal with Beza.
Yeah.
No, I like it. I think this looks great. I don't think it's too expensive. I have the majority of these cards sitting around, so like I said, I've needed somewhere for this Bronzebeak Foragers. I bought so many of them. I can't believe they're such a cheap card. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, you have like 10? Like I guess, yeah. And I haven't updated any decks yet. I've just been scanning, and then making Kona decks. Man, I've made too many Kona decks.
Yeah. Now this was a good one.
Yeah, I like this. I'm happy to wrap that one there.
Sure.
Let me hit my outro music, which I professionally know exactly where it is. Thank you guys for joining us with another live brew. Tell us what would go in this. Like Thunder was mentioning earlier, mentioning YouTube, come on Instagram, any of those places. Like we love to chat and hear what kind of people think about those. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe. It really does help out. Come see us when we do the live stream. I'm gonna try keep doing this more regularly. There's a lot of calamities to get through. I got a lot of boxes. Thunder keeps showing me the new Duskmourn boxes, and then I'm gonna have to build all the Duskmourn commanders, and I'm gonna have to take out a loan to get all those ones. It's a lot. Yeah, if you want to chat brewing like more personally with us, come over to Patreon. It's as little as $1 does help us out. Any of these cards being expensive, go to a Beza proxy shop. Promo code IT99. That's going to help them out. It's what's going to help you out on price. It's going to help us out. It's going to be everything. Sleeve your new decks in AI armor sleeves. The link's always in our bio. They're just great. They are like my favorite sleeves, and I need to buy another stack of them coming up with the Duskmourn stuff. I wasn't excited for the Duskmourn stuff, and then I read this Kona card, and I've built like 13 Kona decks. It's a lot of Kona decks, so I'm gonna need a real big restock. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Thunder, for joining us with this one. And again, I'm excited to build more Calamity Beasts with you. So we will be back with another one shortly. Oh, and there'll be a budget version as well. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I go to our outro screen. We're good to go. We give them the music for a second.